Welcome back. We're going to continue our study in Deuteronomy chapter 14. I hope you had a good and enjoyable lunch. Um, let's start in Deuteronomy. Well, before we hit Deuteronomy, in this part of Deuteronomy, the subject is going to involve helping the poor. And I want to show what the Bible says about the poor. Now, you might have heard this saying. This is the saying: God helps those who help themselves. Have you ever heard that saying? God helps those who help themselves. That is not biblical. It is not in the Bible. It's not in the Bible. I don't know where it came from, but it's not in the Bible. So let's look at what the Bible says. Now, this is the thing. In the capitalist system that we are in America, generally, people that are poor are generally labeled as lazy or uneducated. In other words, in the capitalist system, they make it sound like you're poor because you chose to be, or you're poor because you don't want anything in life, or you're poor because you refuse to work. That is a falsehood created by greedy people and people of wealth that want to continue to use the poor so that they can stay wealthy. Okay? Most people that are poor work extremely hard. They just can't make wages enough to satisfy what their obligations are. Because one thing, if you live in a developed country, once you become an adult in terms of having your own abode to live, whether it be a house or an apartment, you're going to have bills, period. Once you become independent and you're living outside of your mama's home, or your daddy's home, and you're considered an adult, you're working, you're going to have bills. And so you're going to have electrical bills if you want lights. If you're living in a cold climate, you're going to have heating bills. Sometimes, depending on the quality of water, you're going to have water bills, right? You're going to have bills. You're going to have to pay taxes. If you have a car, you're going to have to pay money to register the car, to pay taxes on the car. You got to keep the car insured. You got to upkeep the car. You're going to have bills. Part of the corruption of the system is that it's designed to keep you down. It's not designed for you to move up, particularly if you're not of the people it was designed for. It was not designed for former slaves to get ahead. It was not. It was designed for people that weren't slaves to get ahead. Okay? And the same formula has been used since the United States was formed. This is the formula. Enslave people. And if somehow you have to not enslave them physically, put them in debt. Enslave people, and if you can't enslave them for whatever political reason that you can't do it anymore, put them in debt. And so the modern system works like that. It puts you in debt. The capitalist economy runs on people collecting things and buying things. And when the things become too expensive for you to buy, they give you debt to buy them. Okay? Very few people today can afford a house without a mortgage. And when you get a house and you get a mortgage, you're in debt. And you would like to have some furniture in the house? Okay, they'll let you borrow the money to buy furniture. How about a refrigerator? You want to keep a refrigerator? You can get you appliances. And so when you borrow money to buy the refrigerator, to buy the furniture, that money goes to the furniture company, goes to the appliance company, and there's people working there and they get part of that money. And then they borrow money for what they need to buy. And the cycle continues. So that because of that, you're always going to have poor people in the world. Always. As long as there's greed on the earth, you're going to have poverty. That is why there's going to come a day in the new kingdom that's soon to be established by Messiah himself, the Father, Son, Messiah, as given from the Father. Matter of fact, let me just give you a couple of witnesses for that. This first, Daniel chapter 7. Daniel chapter 7. Daniel chapter 7. I'm going to begin at verse 13. Daniel chapter 7, beginning at verse 13. And I'm going to go from verse 13 down to verse 18. Daniel chapter 7, from 13 to 18. I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven, and came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. And there was given him dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all people, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, which shall not pass away, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed. I, Daniel, was grieved in my body and in the midst of my, in my spirit, in the midst of my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. I came near unto one of them that stood by and asked him the truth of all this. So he told me and made me know the interpretation of the thing. These great beasts which are four kings which shall arise out of the earth. But the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. So the Most High is the Ancient of Days. The Son of Man is Messiah. And it says the Most High gave the Son of Man a kingdom, that all people, nations, and languages should serve Messiah as king of this earth. In that kingdom, there'll be no poverty, because in that kingdom, there'll be no greed. See, in this kingdom, as it's this right now, there is extreme greed. Every rich person is greedy, and because rich people are never rich enough. A billionaire doesn't have enough, if you ask him. They're always showing you by trying to gain more that they don't have enough, because that is the curse of greed. And so the more greedier your powerful people are, we are not, right? We don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities like corporations, like systems, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Brothers and sisters, this involves greed. And so you're going to have poor people all the time. And it's not because they're lazy. They're victims of the greed of this world. Okay? They're victims of the greed of this world. Revelation chapter 5. Revelation chapter 5. It says the same thing that Daniel chapter 7 says. Just give you a little bit different angle on it. Revelation chapter 5. We're going to begin at verse 1. Revelation chapter 5. Beginning at verse 1. And read down to verse 9. Actually, from verse 1 to verse 10. It's the same thing as Daniel chapter 7, where Messiah is getting a kingdom from his Father, but it's just worded a little differently. Revelation chapter 5, 1 through 10. And I saw in the right hand of him that sat on the throne, the Ancient of Days, a book written within and on the backside, sealed with 7 seals. And I saw a strong angel proclaiming with a loud voice, who is worthy to open the book and to loose the seals thereof? And no man in heaven, nor in earth, neither under the earth, was able to open the book, neither to look thereon. And I wept much, because no man was found worthy to open and to read the book, neither to look thereon. And one of the elders said unto me, Weep not. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, hath prevailed to open the book and to loose the seven seals thereof. And I beheld, and lo, in the midst of the throne, and of the four beasts, and in the midst of the elders, stood a lamb, as it had been slain, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of Yah, sent forth into all the earth. And he came and took the book out of the right hand of him that sat upon the throne. And when he had taken the book, the 4 beasts and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, having every one of them harps and golden vials full of odors, which are the prayers of the saints. And they sung a new song, saying, Thou art worthy to take the book and to open the seals thereof, for thou wast slain and hast redeemed us to Yah by thy blood out of every kindred and tongue and people and nation, and has made us unto our Most High kings and priests, and we shall reign on the earth. The same kingdom given to Messiah in Daniel 7 is given to him here in Revelation 5. And in that kingdom, there'll be no more poverty. There'll be no more greed. There'll be no more lust for power and fighting wars for power and greed and land. It'll be all fair. Everything will be perfect in righteousness. Everyone will have everything that they need. Praise the Most High. Nobody will be without. Okay, let's go now to Second Thessalonians. Second Thessalonians chapter 3. 2 Thessalonians chapter 3. 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, beginning at verse 1. 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, beginning at verse 1, and reading down to verse 10. 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, 1 through 10. Finally, brethren, pray for us, that the word of the master may have free course and be glorified, even as it is with you, that we may be delivered from unreasonable and wicked men. For all men have not faith. But the master is faithful, who shall establish you and keep you from evil. And we have confidence in the master touching you, that ye both do and will do the things which we command you. And the master direct your hearts into the love of Yah, and into the patient waiting of Messiah. Now we command you, brethren, in the name of the master Yahushua, the Messiah, that ye withdraw yourselves from every brother that walketh disorderly, and not after tradition which he received of us. Notice he didn't say every Christian. He said every brother that walketh disorderly. That is those that are claiming this faith. He said every brother that walketh disorderly and not after tradition you received from us. So remember, who is us he's talking about? He's talking about the Hebrew Israelites like himself that were called to teach Gentiles. He said, what we taught you, if people walking disorderly, not according to what we taught you, he said, what did he say? Withdraw yourselves. Don't hang up with them people. Don't hang out with the so-called ones that's supposed to be brothers that's walking disorderly against the word that the Most High has shown us. Okay. For yourselves know how ye ought to follow us, for we behaved not ourselves disorderly among you. Neither did we eat any man's bread for naught, but wrought with labor and travail night and day, that we might not be chargeable to any of you. Not because we have not power, but to make ourselves an example unto you to follow us. For even when we were with you, this we commanded you, that if any would not work, neither should he eat. If any would not work, neither should he eat. Paul, as an example, Paul, now remember, at this time, the scattering had begun. And so the scattering of the true Israelites, the followers of the Messiah, the way, had begun. And so you don't have a Levitical priesthood per se. So therefore, they weren't returning tithes to Levites, but you had some that's trying to live off the people. And he said, we were showing you an example of us that did not want to be chargeable to you. We were working, he said. Paul was a tent maker. So he was out here working and building tents and selling them for his sustenance. And if he got money from the people, he was usually bringing it to the poor. And he said, if you don't work, you shouldn't eat. Now, let's bring this to today. Very difficult today. It's even harder than it was in those days. And that's even with so-called welfare and Section 8 sometimes and food serve program. Those programs are a very small slice of the economy of the United States. Okay? Very small slice. Like less than 1%. Whereas the military budget is almost $700+ billion or whatever. You see, but the poor budget is a small slice of the agricultural budget. And yet they'll tell you we need to stop wasteful spending. See how greedy people are? Well, anyway, right now you have a lot of women that's trying to raise children and trying to work at the same time. Biblically speaking, a woman shouldn't have to do that. If it was in the Bible, she'd be getting provided for because a man's supposed to be working with her. That's the extreme poverty. A lot of poverty are single women with children. A lot of poverty is that. Okay? Single women with children. Or you have a man trying to work and his income he's not being paid enough to support his family. He's not being paid enough to support his family. And it's not because of his lack of education. Over time, this economy in the United States has gotten worse and worse and worse. So that when my father graduated high school, he was able to get a job. And that job helped sustain our family. His working. My mother and him both worked for a while. And then after they got established and he moved up on his job, and he wasn't making a ton of money, but his job was able to pay our mortgage and feed us and clothe us. Now, we had to watch our pennies and stuff, but it was done. Okay? Can't do that now. Very rare. Very rare. You know, for a man today to be able to support a family today, depending on where you live, that man needs to make at least 80 to 100,000 plus a year to support a wife and family. And if the wife works together, they need to make 100,000 a year together in order to even be able to tread water. Okay. You know what I mean? Just maintain. Okay. They need to together make over 100,000 a year. Okay. So the economy is not built for us. And so, like, I'll give you our example as much as I can without getting too personal, but I was self-employed. And the reason I was self-employed because I was getting paid so little. My wife had our third child, and we both decided that we wanted her to stay home with the children because honestly, I didn't trust people with my children. That's just me. And we could have gotten way farther ahead economically. She had a great job. And with the two jobs that we had together, we will be able to put some money aside and make our bills work. But we did not want our children going to daycare. We just didn't want that. And the example we had is we had people we trusted. And my son was not being treated properly. At that time, he was the second son. He wasn't being treated properly. And these are people we trusted. And I thought, if I can't bring him to people I trust, I certainly can't bring him to people I don't trust. And then the cost of the daycare was basically my wife would be working just to pay daycare. Okay. She'd be working just to pay daycare because that's the cost of the daycare for us. So we decided, okay, she's going to stay home. And I thought, you know what? I'm not going to get paid enough to take care of my family. I'm going to roll the dice and go self-employed. No, tough. All right. So we struggled. We struggled a lot. Now, of course, I had the aim of becoming rich this way because I was self-employed. And man, we were struggling, struggling, struggling. And we made it through finally, but we had to lose houses and cars and all of that in order to make it. Because I had me working self-employed and I had my wife. And at that point, there was 4 children. The oldest was Jose was older at that time. He must have been 12 or 13 or something like that. And he was, with us and he was helping. But then he got 18 and went on his own. I still had 3. So I had to provide for my wife and 3. And I had some years where I would make 6 figures, but it was tight. It was still tight. Okay, it wasn't easy. And I had to really, to get built up to make 6 figures, I had to really push hard, very hard. Okay. And so that was real. And today, a lot of people can't do that. You can't expect everybody to go out and make like I did, and I didn't make 6 figures every year. There'd be some good years and there'd be some lean years. Okay. And then my wife, once my last child went to college, my wife started working again. And it took a couple of years. She hadn't been working. She was starting part-time and then took little menial jobs. We had to go back and she went and got an associate's degree and then she making a little bit more. I had to get 3 degrees. Once my business failed, 3 degrees just to be able to get a decent job. And so I did get a decent job. I was making good money, but I got to pay back a lot more. See, so the system is set up that as you're trying to get ahead, there's something pulling you back. You got to fight really hard just to get ahead, especially if you're a Hebrew, and especially if you want children. See, now, even with all that, it's easier for my wife and myself because my children are all grown. I'm not supporting children now. And for us, that was a huge weight because it was like, I was so used to trying to tug myself with my wife and my 3 kids that, once that weight was gone, it's like, oh, sure, wait, it's just me and you now. Because we were so used for 20 years going through that. And brethren, that financial strain caused our marriage to go through it. And that's another issue. Financial strains of this economy cause many people's marriage to crumple, man. The money issues. You start attacking each other. And all of a sudden it starts to crumple, man. Or if you're a man and, my kids was angry because we lost the house. And it's my fault. Never mind that I'm providing food and shelter for them, but I lost the house and it's my fault. And they were angry at me. And I was resentful. See, y'all eating the crumbs I provide. But that's the type of strain the financial situation puts on you. Okay, that's the type of strain it puts on. All right. So, and it causes many marriages to end. Okay, many. And so that we got to understand that's the system we live in. So that you don't blame each other for the system you live in. Okay. We had friends that were working, husbands and wives working and putting their kids in daycare and putting them in public school. We didn't want that. We homeschooled ours. You don't see many Black families homeschooling. You don't see many people homeschooling, but Black families homeschooling, you didn't see it because I ain't trust the school system. That was just me. I ain't trust the school system. I wasn't going to pay those exorbitant fees for some private school. So I started it, didn't like it. So I said, no. So we homeschooled. That was hard. That was really hard. But I look back now and it was worth it. It was worth losing 5 cars and 2 houses. Yep. But we got through. The Most High got us through. But there's many people in this society that are suffering. Women trying to raise kids, especially women trying to raise sons, man. That, and you, for every success of a woman that was able to raise her sons to be proper gentlemen, that responsible adults, there's probably 10 that's grieving right now because their kid's in jail or dead or doesn't want to take care of anybody and don't know how to be a man. Okay, there's a lot of that. It's real important that children are raised by two parents. It's real important. It's not impossible for a single parent to raise a child, but I think any single parent will tell you it would have been easier if they had two. Been easier. Okay. The rate of success would be better if there was two raising a child. So now, Deuteronomy chapter 14. Deuteronomy chapter 14. And brethren, I'm trying to say this, that if we are trusting the Father Yah and we're committing to his glory as husbands, as wives, as children, as families, he will guide us through. That's the only thing I can tell you. There is no secret sauce. There is no secret answer to get ahead in an economy built to destroy you. There is no secret answer to get ahead in an economy that's built to keep you down. And I don't care what anybody said. This economy is built to keep you down. Look, I'm gonna be honest. The hardest working people that I have seen are three groups of people: the Asians, mostly the Koreans in the United States, the Hispanics, and the Black people. These are the hardest, the so-called African American, hardest working groups of people I have seen. Okay, work hard. But among them, the most oppressed is the so-called Black man. He's the most oppressed. It's really weighted on him. It's really against him. The wages are lower than any of the other groups. The wages are lower. He got to work harder. He has to take on more debt. The weight is heavier. And then with this whole women's movement and his women disrespecting him, it's a miracle that we're still here, brother. It's a miracle of the Most High. It really is. It really is. Okay? This is hard out here. But Father Yah is the answer to get us through. It's not a church. It's not dragging you knucklehead kids to church and hoping that the church could help you. That's been done. Okay? It's the Father Yah himself calling on your heavenly Father. As men, as women, as mothers, as fathers, as children, calling on your heavenly Father. He is the only way to get through that. That's the only way I can tell you we made it. Because I know we didn't make it because I was just really smart and worked really hard. No. We would have been broke up many times if it wasn't for the Father. Many times. It wasn't for the Father. And had outside influences from family and friends telling us, break up, go your separate ways, It ain't working. Have my mother call and leave her. Come live with me. You could take care of the kids from my house. Don't let family get into your family. Don't let outsiders get into your family. Handle your business with your spouse, with your God. Especially, I'm talking to awakened Hebrews now. Handle your business with the Father Yah and with your spouse. Because the Father Yah will show you how it really is. He'll show you and what you need to do. He will guide your steps. He will never leave you nor forsake you. The problem is we start to think we can handle it our own way. Or we start including people that got no business in our business. Whether they be friends or family. They got no business in our business, especially if you call on the Father. Trust in Yahweh with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. In all thy ways, acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. That's the only way we made it. That's the only way, I'm telling you. That's the only way we made it, man. All my degrees and all that stuff, man. All right. I got to pay back a large nut. But it was not for Father Yah, we wouldn't even be here. I wouldn't be celebrating 38 years with my wife and being happy with her. I would not do that. It's funny because my mother told me, you're going to probably get married 3 times before you find the right one. You ain't going to be able to settle down. And she was basing that on the astrology of me and my wife. This is her sign. This is your sign. That ain't going to work. You're going to need certain sign. You're going to need a couple of times to find it. And you're going to get divorced. You're not going to be. So they were betting against us from the beginning. Whereas Father brought us together. And what Yah brings together, let not man be asunder. Put asunder. And I'm talking about my own mother, my own father, who I love. They weren't helping us. If it wasn't for the Father, we would not be together. We would not have made it. And I'm telling you, the economic stress, brethren. That's why I told my kids, all my children, knowing what I went through with my parents, knowing what my wife went through with her parents, we taught our children that we was talking to them about college when they was 9 and 8 years old. And we were talking about trades. And we were saying to them, you're going to have to be able to take care of yourself. I told my daughters, it's nice because when they were 8 years old and 5 years old, I was already praying for who their spouses would be. I wasn't waiting until they started looking. I was praying for their spouses while they was babies. And I told my daughters, if you meet a nice young man and y'all get together, work together, you want to have some money saved. And I told them, I said, you go to college, stay with mom and dad as long as you can, because once you leave, you're on your own. Stay as long as you can and put them dollars together. Brethren, a lot of times, like me and my wife, when we met, it had a pot to pee in or a window to throw out of between us. And that, we made it. The Father brought us together. But I tell you what, if I was able to have put together some dollars, it would have been easier for us. So my oldest son, and I can't blame him, we was religious fanatics of Christianity at that time, and he didn't want to stay in the house no more. And as soon as he got 18, he was gone, man. And by the time he was 21, he was signing up for the army. He didn't want to stay home with us. And I can't blame him. I couldn't. Then I didn't understand because I thought, well, why don't you want to serve the Lord? I was very religiously fanatical. And he didn't want to deal with that, and he left and got his own thing and has been on his own ever since. So I was telling him, stay home, save your money, and he just couldn't wait to get away from our house. My second son, I said to him the same thing, and he had gotten a trade because I spent the money to get him the certified nurse's assistant. It was CNA. I got him a CNA, helped him get the CNA license, and based on that, he went to college. He got his scholarship. He was saving money while he was in college. And the brother's still saving money. My oldest son's always coming to him for money because he done saved his money. So when he gets ready to get married, he finds a nice spouse. He's got a savings account already set up. My next daughter did the same thing. She stayed with me, while she went to college, did her CNA. Came home, stayed with us, saved some money, met a nice man, and this young man recognized her in college, because she was raised homeschool. She used to complain, why you guys homeschool me? She went to college, all of them cats wanted her because she knew how to cook, she knew how to clean, she knew how to take care of a man. She went and got her master's degree, saved her money. They just bought my house. And they got money saved still. See? So that there's going to be all types of pressures. There's going to be all types of issues in society, especially for the Hebrews, that you still got to deal with. But if you can, help your children, just get a little, it ain't like you're going to make them rich, but I told them, you want to have some money put aside so that you don't got to start off struggling from the beginning. Okay. That's what you want for your kids, man. Because how many, I know, when my father wasn't giving a crap. I love my dad. He sold me this house. I bought it from him. But when we was getting ready to be 18, it was time for us to go. He wasn't giving a crap what we said, what we didn't say, what we had, what we didn't have. And that's why when I met my wife, I was 22, didn't have nothing. Trying to scrape together, working on minimum wage. Then my father came back after we got married and said, I'm going to help you go to City College. And I went to City College and he helped me. He helped me go to City College. My wife was working and that started us off a little bit, but it was hard, man. We had one child already. It was hard, not easy. Okay. As much as possible, try to help your children get a little bit ahead. Like I said, they're not going to be millionaires here, but they can put together some cash so that when they get out on their own, they don't have to struggle like you and I did. Okay. It'll be a little bit easier for them in that regard. You could do that. Deuteronomy chapter 14. Deuteronomy chapter 14. So we went through the dietary laws, right? Went through the dietary laws, and let's go. We finished at verse 20. Verse 21 of Deuteronomy 14. Ye shall not eat of anything that dieth of itself. Thou shalt give it unto the stranger that is in thy gates, that he may eat it. Or thou mayest sell it unto an alien. For thou art an holy people unto Yahweh thy most high. Thou shalt not see the kid in his mother's milk. Let's talk about this for a second. So one day my kids and I, we used to go for hikes on Sabbath. I take my kids on Sabbath for hikes in state forests and paths and all this. And we were going through this particular wood one day, and we started smelling, the carcass of a dead animal. And as we got closer, we saw these giant horns. It was a male deer, and it had died. I don't know if somebody shot it, but it had been sitting there dead for a while because it was smelling, right? The flesh was rotting. And as we got closer to it, we had to pass by it on this path. And when we went to pass by it, there was this weird looking dude sitting on a log, literally, across from the dead deer. And I said, man, you sitting here in this rotted, this stink. He said, yeah, it smelled good, don't it? And he was going to eat of that dead deer that died of itself and was sitting there. The Father's telling us, don't eat of an animal that dieth of itself. Why? He said, you could give it to the stranger. That was a heathen. Let him eat it. You don't eat it. Because you're holy unto the Most High. Let the heathen eat stuff that you're not supposed to eat. You're not missing nothing. He's the Most High blessing you. Let the heathen eat it. He said, let them eat it. You don't need to eat it. That's what he said right there. He said, thou mayest sell it unto the alien. You give it to the stranger. You don't eat it, though. Okay, and that animal it wasn't like shot that day. That thing was stinking. You could smell the flesh rotten. Y'all know when you got a dead dog or a dead animal and they don't move it, it starts to stink. That thing was stinking. It had been sitting there for a minute. My man was getting ready to chop it up and eat it. Thou shalt not see the kid in his mother's milk. So you having the cow, you don't take the milk from the cow and boil the beef in the milk. That's like disrespectful to the animal, isn't it? It's disrespectful. Or you don't take the eggs from the bird and then kill the bird and eat it with the eggs. That's disrespectful to the animal. You understand that? That's disrespectful. Okay? because they were raising their own cattle and they were raising their own chickens and stuff in the Bible. These most people raising their stuff. So he says you don't take the milk of the lamb or the milk of the goat and then cook the goat's meat in it. That's disrespecting the animal. See, even there, he's teaching us to have respect. Even though you're killing the animal to eat, have respect for the animal. That's why we try not to eat foods that come from out of these slaughterhouses. Them got no respect for the animals they killing. You know, we were fortunate in that we lived in Northern Virginia, where a lot, and I'm not Muslim, but we lived with a lot of strict Muslims, and they had halal laws. They would cook them, eat them, kill with halal laws. Halal laws are very similar to kosher law in that they don't kill the animal. They kill the animal a certain way. They raise it a certain way. They treat it a certain way. And there are different people do that. That's why we try to get organic, grass-fed, family farm raised stuff, man, because that's the best way to get it, because it's raised properly, killed properly. There's respect given to it. See? Now, verse 22, Deuteronomy 14:22. Thou shalt truly tithe all the increase of thy seed that the field bringeth forth year by year. So notice he didn't mention money. He said tithe the increase of the field. Why? Because the tithe was supposed to be to feed poor people. That's what the tithe was supposed to be for, the feeding of people. So he said, tithe the increase of the seed that bringeth forth year to year. So you take 10% of whatever you've grown, whatever you got, you put it aside. You had 100 cattle, you take 10, you put it aside for people that don't have any, so they can eat. So poor and fatherless and widow and Levite could eat. Okay. Verse 23, and thou shalt eat before Yahweh thy Most High in the place which he shall choose to place his name there, the tithe of thy corn, of thy wine, and of thy oil, and the firstlings of thy herd and of thy flocks, that thou mayest learn to fear Yahweh thy Most High always. So there's a specific place he chose. First, we know it was Shiloh in Ephraim, and then later it was Jerusalem under David. So under David, it became Jerusalem. So they brought the tithe to Jerusalem. And then from there, people that was poor would go to Jerusalem and get food. That's why he said, bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in mine house, because that was supposed to be at Jerusalem. He said the place where he chose was Jerusalem, and you bring all the food there. The firstlings of the flock you bring there, the firstborn of the flock, because that's for the poor, the Levite, the widow, the fatherless. That's what that was for. So people could go to Jerusalem, make their way there, and get food there that may not otherwise have it. A woman could have 1,000 acres of land, but if she ain't got no man to farm that land, or sons, what's she going to do? So they could go to Jerusalem and get what they need. That's what tithing was for. Okay. All right. Verse 24. And if the way be too long for thee, so that thou art not able to carry it, or if the place be too far from thee, which Yahweh thy Most High shall choose to set his name there, when Yahweh thy Most High hath blessed thee, then shalt thou turn it into money, and bind up the money in thine hand, and thou shalt go to the place which Yahweh thy Most High shall choose, and thou shalt bestow that money for whatsoever thy soul lusteth after, for oxen, or for sheep, or for wine. Notice these are all edible items, or for wine, or for strong drink, or for whatsoever thy soul desireth, thou shalt eat there before Yahweh thy Most High, and thou shalt rejoice, thou and thy household. So he said you turn into money, and then turn the money into edible items that you can eat, that you can share. And notice again, verse 27, and the Levite that is within thy gates, that thou shalt not forsake him, for he hath no part nor inheritance with thee. Verse 28, at the end of 3 years thou shalt bring forth all the tithe of thy increase the same year, and shalt lay it up within thy gates. Verse 29, and the Levite, because he hath no part nor inheritance with thee, and the stranger, and the fatherless, And the widow that are within thy gate shall come and shall eat and be satisfied, that Yahweh thy Most High may bless thee in all the work of thy hand which thou doest. So the tithe is not for church building funds. The tithe is not to pay Pastor Reverend so-and-so. The tithe is not to pay the light bill of your building that you call in the Lord's house. The tithe is for the poor. It's to feed the poor. Okay? It's to feed the poor. And just to tell you, see, I used to do this. I worked in a bank in Washington, D.C., and I would see poor come into the bank. I worked in the neighborhood, right? So I'm in a neighborhood in Washington, D.C., and I'm seeing poor people. There were, of course, one neighborhood, I was at the U Street. Some of y'all know what U Street is. I was at U Street in Washington, D.C., and I was in a branch, and I'd see it, the mix. There'd be the Caucasians that were coming in as the neighborhood was being gentrified, and then there'd be the poor that had been there for 40, 50 years, raised children there, was struggling. And you could tell from the bank accounts be negative. So what I do, and I'm going to tell you this because I'm not there anymore. I'm not doing it. I'm doing other things now, which I won't tell you. But I used to call up supermarket and I'd make a list and I'd send it to this widow's house that I knew I could see her bank account and I knew it was negative most of the month. And I'd send her eggs and meat and milk and I'd send it to her. And I have it set on her porch. And I made sure they didn't know where it came from. Okay. Or I see a young woman trying to work at some bakery and have 2 or 3 kids, the different fathers, send them some food. Didn't get money. I sent them food. And I didn't let them know it was coming from me, but I could see their accounts and I knew who was struggling and who wasn't struggling. Okay. And I would send it to them. See, so brethren, you don't let your right hand know, your left hand know what your right hand is doing. But you could do it. There's a lot of things you could do. There's poor people all around us, brethren. Poor people all around us. Okay, poor people all around us. And people that want to work, people that's struggling, and they love to mow your lawn, to paint your house, to do whatever, and you could pay them. Or there's poor people that's in other countries that don't have nothing. There's no social welfare system in most countries. The Philippines and different countries in Central America and South America, they don't have, in Africa, they don't have no social welfare. So you got people there trying to raise children and they ain't got pot to pee in. They really poor. I remember one time, somebody was showing me their house. They were so happy to get this house in Africa. I won't say the name of the country, but the toilet didn't have no top to it, and the shower was just a hole, like it almost wasn't even a hose. It was a piece of metal, and the water would just come out. That was the shower, and everything was just raggedy to me, and they didn't have a proper toilet. I said, "What's the toilet?" He said, "This ain't America. This is what we get over here." There's a lot of people like that. And you know what? $50 in some countries, $50 in the Philippines is 2,500 Philippine dollars. 2,500. They know what to do with that to make their life work. See? There's a lot we can do besides giving money to some of these rip-off factories calling themselves churches. Reverend Dr. So-and-so with 3 cars. And you know what? I'm not even talking about brothers like Kyrie, that's making 40 million and can cut a tithe of his check and feed a whole town. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just average people like us that's just, I'm working, my wife is working, we're not taking care of kids anymore, so we could get a couple of dollars. I could send this one, I could send that one. Just a little bit here and there. It ain't like we trying to feed the whole world, but you do what you can. And there's people that's around the planet struggling. There's people you might live in a neighborhood and you can see, you will see women, especially with their children, struggling. I've seen it, man. Can't even buy a tire for a flat tire, riding around on a donut because the paycheck, the next week's pay ain't come yet, and they can't buy the tire. Seen it. Been there. Brothers working multiple jobs trying to make the end of their month. A little food will help a lot. Electric bill you could pay, help a lot. Help a lot. Because the bills keep coming. The months keep coming and the bills keep coming. Help a lot. So this, the next time somebody stands up talking about we need your support. Nah. Tell them to get a trade. Tell them to learn how to be a plumber. Tell them to learn how to be an electrician. Tell them to learn how to make tents. These brothers out here talking about we need your support for our ministry. Tell them to learn how to carpentry. So they can support themselves instead of pimping they so-called flock. Huh? Yeah, man. I mean, there was other purple in Panama. Do you know they don't do toilet paper? I ain't fronting. And in the Philippines, they don't do toilet paper. They do toilet paper in resorts. So if you're going in a resort or you're going in a fancy hotel, they'll do toilet paper. But the common people, they use a hose to wash out their behind when they go to the bathroom, and they pat it dry. They don't have money for toilet paper, or they don't have the septic system for toilet paper. That's real. That's real. Okay, that's real. They can't just go to the store and get everything. We could just walk in the store. I feel like some pistachio nuts today. So you could go to the supermarket and you got 100% guaranteed they're going to have your pistachio nuts. They're going to have it there. You know they're going to have it there. You don't even need faith. It's going to be there. I think I want a steak tonight. And you go to your local market and there's going to be a steak there. You just know it. There's people around the world can't do that. There's people in the United States can't do that. They wish they could have it. Like they wish they could just go into a store and get something. That's why, and I'm not excusing violence and I'm not excusing robbery, but that's why a lot of young kids grow up becoming thieves, man. They jack cars. Why are they doing that? For fun? They ain't doing it for fun. This is business. I'm not condoning it, but when you understand the poverty, the desperation, and you're talking about, this is what happened. Multiple generations of Black men and Spanish men in prison. Children having children, trying to raise children with no education, no job. These kids grow up. That's why y'all that watch my next channel, what do I say? Blessed are the homeless. Don't I say that? You know why? There's kids that's raising themselves on streets. Lots of them. Tens, hundreds of thousands of them. Them kids don't grow up and become rich. Them kids grow up to rob you of your car at the stoplight. That's what they do. Because they don't know no other way. And sometimes they 10, 11, 12, 13 years old. And they will kill you. They will kill you. Because they got no other way. There's no other way. And I wish, I'm going to be real. I wish I could live with them. I don't want to. No. I don't want to be in a position to have to try to kill a kid that's desperate. But that's how it is. It makes me mad. It does. People calling our people lazy. And they set us up. They set us up for that. Yeah. Yeah, it'd be nice, to stay in the hood and help people. It sounds nice. But you can't do it. You got to get out. I moved my kids to a place in New Hampshire, 173 acres on a mountain, only 500 people in the whole town. Why? Because I wanted to live with white people? No. I was trying to protect my children. It's real. I would go back to the hood myself. And my wife was scared of that. I would go back to the hardest projects and talk to the kids. That's how I met professional basketball players. I met some. They weren't professional basketball players when I met them. That's how I learned how to coach. Coaching basketball with kids I met in projects, man. Kids that would be dealing crack, kids that would carry guns, kids that had to protect themselves. I would met kids that was 14, 15 years old and was the man of their house. And couldn't read. Someone couldn't read, but knew how to earn. They knew how to earn. And now, who am I to judge them? You see? That's the way the system sets us up. So if you could help. Because it's real out here, especially for us. It's real out here. And don't let nobody know where the help's coming from. That's serious. You know why? First of all, the Most High will bless you if you are doing it secretly. Let nobody know. He will bless you with nobody except the Father knows. He will bless you. Okay, the Messiah taught us, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. So don't let nobody know you doing it if you can avoid it, right? If you can avoid it. That's number one. Number two reason you don't let nobody know, because if they know it's from you, they'll start to make a habit of coming at you. You know I'm telling the truth, right? So, once they know that you sent the money, you sent food, they're going to keep coming at you. And that's discouraging them from trying to help themselves. And so you don't let it know where it's coming from, but you send it. Okay. I support fatherless children and single parents in other countries. I've done it. And I work with other brothers to do it. Y'all could do the same thing. Okay. Because it's out here. It's real, man. And that's why I'm angry when I see teenagers sticking up adults and killing adults. It makes me angry. And yes, they got to be punished. But at the same time, you got to understand the dynamics that created that situation. That 12-year-old boy, his mother's probably 25, 28. She ain't able to take care of him or his brethren the way she can. She ain't got the education. Maybe she working in some job at a Dunkin' Donuts or something. She ain't making enough money to provide for everybody. Some nights he goes to bed hungry. So he decide one night, I ain't going to bed hungry tonight. I could get me a gun and bullets, and you pulling up with that gold on your neck, I'm taking it. And I could get money to feed myself and buy me some clothes. That's how they think, man. That's what's out there. And they ain't getting educated. The school systems in the neighborhoods of the poor, you can't tell me they're the same as in the neighborhoods of the rich. They're different. They're lacking. It's interesting. When I worked in U Street, a federal prosecutor walked into my office one day. Federal prosecutor. And he was telling me, now, I told you that neighborhood, when I was managing that branch on U Street, that neighborhood was in transition. It was in transition. It was being gentrified. You could see it daily. They were building new buildings. They were refurbishing buildings. The property values were just going up by the month, right? So this federal prosecutor walks into my office and he said, "Man, you should be glad that you're here now." He said, "You should have been here 10 years ago." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Man, it was bad here." I said, "What you mean bad?" He said, "Man, you couldn't even, you see, because we were sitting in my office by a window and you could see cars, going back and forth on the street, on U Street." He said, "There wasn't no cars going back and forth on U Street then." I said, "No." I said, "What happened?" He said, "Man, there was crack deals going on all over the street. They would just be pulling up." He said, "There was no crack." He said, "You see that school? There was a middle school around the corner." He said, "They were using it as a shooting gallery." He said, "They was getting high in there. They were doing deals in there. Kids couldn't go to school in there." So then I said, "Well, how did it become this in 10 years?" He said, "We came through in vans and we round up all the crack dealers." He said, city would put in violations on all the buildings and would take the buildings from the owners if they didn't fix the violations. And he said, within a short time, the place was cleaned up. And I thought to myself, now listen here. So you telling me that the crack haven, the gangs, you see, there's the gangs all over the place. They're going now. I said, the crack haven, the gangs, you could have cleaned that up anytime you wanted to. And I'm just being real with y'all. They decided to make it safe for white people. So they cleaned it up. It was just a decision. It was a federal government decision. This is a federal prosecutor. And he said the government allowed us to give them long, stiff sentences. And I thought, wow, they can clean this up anytime they wanted to. That's when it hit. He didn't realize that's what I was thinking, because he was so proud of himself for putting brothers away for 20 and 30 years and for life, for having weed or selling crack. But I was like, they could clean this up anytime they wanted to. And the school that 10 years before, kids couldn't even go in because it was used to sell crack. Now it was a model school. It was a model school. Now the across the street, whereas you couldn't give away a building, those same buildings were $700,000. Same building. $700,000. And I was like, I couldn't believe what he told me. I mean, and he said it so matter of factly. He said they allowed us to put long prison sentences on these gang leaders, these gang members, and drug dealers, and it cleaned up. And we put fines and violations on them, because a lot of those landlords were people that were absentee landlords, right? Slumlords. He said we were. You couldn't even give. My cousin told me in that neighborhood 10 years before, he could have bought 3 or 4 buildings for like $10,000 each. Now the same row houses were $700,000, $800,000, and they couldn't get enough of them. People were buying them left and right. And so I realized it's controlled. The whole thing is controlled. They control the drugs. They control what comes in and what doesn't come in. This ain't got nothing to do with black kids deciding to sell crack. It's higher than that. When this federal prosecutor came in and told me that, I was like, now it's confirmed. Now I know. Now I know. Okay? They could do it and not do it. They can decide you're going to be Cabrini Green, or you could be East New York, or you could be Brownsville, or you could be, upper echelon Chicago. Or you could be east side of Manhattan. Or you could be, the rich sections of Queens. You could be tight if they want you to be. Or you don't have to be if they don't want you to be. It's all engineered, brethren. And this whole war on drugs and all of that. Now, in the 80s, I saw 14, 15, 16-year-old kids shot each other over a corner. I saw them. Now that the opioids killing them, we got to help now. We got to help now. It's amazing. Brethren, the truth is, poverty in this system is controlled. It's controlled. And I kind of figured it out, a long time ago, but when I saw the kids killing each other in Hartford. But it was that day when this man, who is a federal prosecutor now, walks into my office and tells me what he told me and tells me how they cleaned it up. I thought to myself, Dad, go on. Now it's confirmed. The government, can create a ghetto or create a gentrified neighborhood. They could do that. They could do that. They could do that. I got family. They were raised in Bedford-Stuyvesant in Brooklyn. And at the time they were raised there, I didn't like to come visit them. They were in Brownsville. I had family in Brownsville. I didn't like to come visit them. Shoot, you'd be in trouble just coming to visit. I did, but I had to be watching my back, and I was out by the time it got dark. Now you got Whole Foods. When you start to see Whole Foods in the neighborhood, that's a changed neighborhood. You got Whole Foods there. Now you got all these coffee houses and little organic markets all over the place. Same neighborhood. I was like, oh man. You see, brethren, it's real and it's controlled. And people are suffering, especially us, but not just us. I mean, there's and those are the Caucasian children of Yafet that I seen in those neighborhoods. Those are the ones that's going to receive this truth. The poor, the ones raised with us and know what it's like to be with us, know what we're dealing with. Those are the ones. I'm noticing that the poorer of the Caucasian, of the children of Yafet, it's those poor. Don't look for the middle class ones to come to this truth, or the ones that's making professional money. It's the poor that struggle, that know the real, that live with us and understand where we're coming from. They know. Okay, they know. All right. So yes, the tithe is not for Reverend Dr. So-and-so for him to pay for his car note. The tithe is for the poor. It's for the fatherless. It's for the widow. And in our society, there is a lot of that. A lot of that. And the next time you get extra money, you say, oh, who should I help? Pray to the Father. He will show you. There's lots of places to go, brethren. Lots of things that need help. Lots of widows. In your neighborhood, they could be in your neighborhood, in your town. Okay, there's a lot of people that could use a little help, man. A lot of people. Okay, that's right. So praise the Most High, Yah. Praise Him. So I'm glad we read Deuteronomy 14. The first half was chosen people and dietary for the chosen. The second half is tithing. Was talking about tithing. And so you can see from what we just read, tithing is not for you to write a check to some church, but that's man's greed, using religion for greed. That's all that is. That's man using religion for greed. And they love to show you, well, we went to Africa and built this church and did that. Let me tell you, let me honestly be real with you, man. There are some people in some nations of Africa that are so poor, they don't care what religion you are or come. They'll tell you they'll believe anything because you're building something for them. You're giving them some money. The Chinese are going over there building stuff. You think they want to be Chinese? They don't care about that. You're bringing something. And then they'll show you pictures. Look what our church is doing. Give us more. Man, it's a game, man. It's a game. It's a game. Yes, right. Al Capone, John Gotti, a lot of mobsters would help people in their neighborhood. John Gotti used to do in Brooklyn every 4th of July. He'd do a big party with all kinds of fireworks back in the 70s and 80s. And I used to work at Water Street. Some of y'all know I used to work in Water Street, downtown Manhattan, and you could see the Brooklyn Bridge. And I used to work there third shift. And during that time, you could see the fireworks. It was beautiful. John Gotti used to pay for all that. See, so brethren, look, man, pray to your Father. Pray for him to end this mess. And it is a mess. Pray for him to end this mess, man. That righteousness would reign on this planet. Okay, righteousness would reign. Pray for the Father to give you his spirit, to guide you in his eternal wisdom and his eternal understanding and righteousness, that you would do as he would have you do. No, Flint does not have clean water. They still don't have clean water. Flint, Michigan still has poison in their water. And now they're finding poison in the water in Mississippi too. Mississippi as well. Yeah, black neighborhoods in Mississippi got poison water now. Yeah, brother. Yeah. Let's keep praying. Let's keep reading. May the Most High bless you and keep you. May he cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May he lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Shalom. That's right. See you at 8. See some of the brothers. We're going to get together at 8. Can't wait. Talk to y'all later.